The War Within is bringing a third new channel of in-game content alongside raiding and dungeons, Delves. Hi, it's Llarold and I'm going to talk about Delves, but first, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, let's just start with what they are. Delves are simple, instanced micro dungeons for anywhere from 1 to 5 players, and those can be players of any roles. You can do 5 healers if you wanted it to be really slow and terrible. 5 DPS seems pretty normal. 5 tanks, a tank. 3 DPS and a healer if you wanted it to be real boring. The basic structure is that you navigate through the area, avoid the traps and hazards, complete 1 or 2 objectives, kill a boss, and then you're done. You loot your rewards and then you get out of there. Now, unlike Pandaria scenarios, which I think is kind of the most similar thing that's ever existed in the history of WoW, Delves have several layers of randomness to them. They are not exactly the same every single time you go in. They have some very basic affixes, packs and monsters can change a bit between Delves and between difficulties. It definitely feels a lot more modern and much more like a dungeon than Pandaria scenarios, but cut down to be much quicker. They're a bite-sized experience, and a normal dungeon is a full meal. There are 11 tiers of difficulty, and Delves reward collectibles, mounts, pets, all the usual stuff. They also give gear, up to the hero track. There's also Bran Bronzebeard in the Delves. He is an NPC who is a bit more fully fleshed out than your standard helpful NPC. Not all that much more though. You can choose for him to be a healer or a DPS. He doesn't tank, and he actually hits pretty hard, and I would say he hits pretty hard whether you tell him to DPS or be a healer. I also don't really think he's a very good healer. He throws some healing potions on the ground. Sometimes he'll throw down like basically a big healing orb or hit you with a lay on hands. But that's about it. He really feels more like a DPS regardless of whatever you tell him to do. He has several cooldowns and you're able to lightly customize his skill set. And he summons a Devil Sar because he's a hunter, and that scared me on multiple occasions. Alright, now let's talk about the good stuff of Delves. First off, there are actual gear rewards. Not so much in testing, but they are intended to give real gear, and they even have a great vault track. Blizzard's current plan is to cap gear rewards from Delves at the hero track. This means that they will be a pretty big step down from max level raid and Mythic Plus gear, but you can at least get meaningful upgrades from this content. This is a pretty big divergence from past content like Island Expeditions and Torghast, which had rewards that were either purely cosmetic or alternate but mandatory power systems like Azerite and Shadowlands legendaries. This means Delves are not mandatory. They're just another kind of content you can do. This is good. Players are not required to do them, and that means that, unlike those previous game modes, there's not going to be the chance for them to breed contempt from being forced to do this chore. Even though he has inconsistent pet AI, Bran is taking advantage of some pretty cool tech. One of his cooldowns will make him choose to fire a big arrow at you randomly. It'll hit the closest enemy in between you and him and do a lot of damage. When he starts his cast, which takes a couple of seconds for him to line up his shot, he will ping himself in-game using the in-game ping system. It makes the ping sound, it shows a big ping icon on his head, and it draws an arrow between the two of you so you can line up the shot and kill whoever it hits. I do think that's pretty cool. I think the best part of this system is just that they're super quick. You're in and out in 10 minutes, ideally. I like that a lot. I think dungeon design has suffered greatly from overlength in the years since Mythic Plus was introduced, and Blizzard apparently doesn't have any plans to change that, but they are providing another in-game gameplay avenue that doesn't require 30 minutes to an hour to complete, and I think that's a good thing. Also, the freedom to do them solo is great. I really like having content that I can run on my own without requiring anyone else, so you can just jump into a delve with Bran, play whatever you want, and be totally fine. In theory. And that is where we kind of transition into the bad part of Delve. Holy God, do they do a lot of damage. They turned my Windwalker into dust. You could use the remains of my Windwalker to make a horrible flavor of Doritos. Monk flavor, tastes like alcohol and pain. I switched to Brewmaster and things became a lot more manageable, but that's maybe not a great indication of the state of tuning on Delves if I was just instantly getting nuked by every trash pack as Windwalker. Now as Ret, I found things to be less painful, but still not perfect. There were also a lot of bugs. We're talking spinning fire traps that are just nowhere near where their animation is located, that deal 80% of your health per tick. Getting insta-killed by invisible fire sucks. There's no other word for it, it sucks. In another delve, the boss is supposed to summon the real final boss when he dies, so I killed him, nothing spawned. That's it, delve bricked. So I went back in there with my channel manager, we did it again just to double check. Yep, still bricked. Not so good. Also, Brand's AI is bad. He can deal a lot of damage, and that is good. All of his skills are passive, so they don't add a bunch of action bar clutter. I think that is also good. I am happy with that. But it comes with a hilarious downside. He very frequently, I would say almost exclusively, will wait until pulls are almost completely done, then start charging up his big death arrow. Everything's dead already, Bran. What are you shooting, bud? He would also do this with his big bloodlust circle, which is another great cooldown he has. He can do like a big time dilation circle that makes time flow much faster if you're standing in it. Super cool idea. Made only slightly annoying since he cast it where he is standing, at range, even if you're playing melee, so you have to drag everything to the hunter. Again, he would wait until the pulls were almost completely done, one mob has 7% health left, then drop the bloodlust circle so that we can move away from it to do the next pull. Thanks, man, perfect timing. Now that's the bad part. Now I want to talk about the ugliness, the true ugliness. I experienced horrendous performance while testing delves. We're talking crashes, FPS issues, massive stuttering, tons of Lua errors, evading mobs, mobs popping in randomly, so many performance errors in delves. The performance was awful. Now, before I go on, let me say, I am not a stupid man. These performance issues are going to be fixed. It is also a beta. They have to be fixed. Unlike Brand's questionable ability usage or monster damage being overtuned, poor performance is not a questionable design, it's just a mistake. They cannot ship the game with it crashing and destroying your FPS all the time. But with that being said, this does not run well. It runs poorly. Delves performed much worse than dungeon and raid testing, which is very strange considering I was mostly in there alone. I was not getting my GPU set on fire by 7 million particle effects from balance druids. I was hitting spinning crane kick or fists of fury or storm earth and fire, and then the game would just turn into a slideshow. Now, not to end this section on a downer, I think they will fix this. They have to fix it. They're going to fix it, but they do need to. It has definitely interfered with the ability to test this content. So those are delves. I was extremely excited for them when they were first announced. I think the biggest thing that WoW has been missing is soloable endgame content that can compete with dungeons and raids. They've had one-off single-player experiences in the past like the Mage Tower, or the mini deaths of Chromie, which I'm sure you forgot existed, but never really any kind of true endgame paths that actually reward gear and feel like a fully fledged game mode like dungeons and raids. This absolutely aims to fill that void. And I want it to work, but right now the tuning is a concern. I've already seen people calling this Torghast 2 because Blizzard is way off of the tuning relative to their expected difficulty for this content. I don't think it's quite at that level. I get where they're going with that criticism, and I haven't done it on a mage yet, so maybe they know something I don't, but I didn't really feel that the enemies I was fighting were these infinite health punching bags like I ran into in Torghast. They didn't feel completely slow and like annoying and cheap like Torghast mobs did. They just hit really hard. Now, my main hope for delves is that they would be a game mode where I could play characters I never really seriously intended to push raids or Mythic Plus or anything like that on. We're talking mage, rogue, shaman, stuff that's not a tank. And then I could still get a decent amount of gear from them so that I could maybe do some plus 10s or heroic raids on them from time to time if I feel like it. Nice to have that option available. I do think delves accomplish that, so I guess I'm pretty happy with them. Except the current state of tuning means I'm probably gonna have to walk through hell to get to that point on those characters, and that feels like a letdown. The thing is, they feel really easy and good as a tank. Really good. I enjoyed delves as Brewmaster, I enjoyed him as Prot Warrior, and so on. Doing them in groups also felt pretty fine, but delving as a solo DPS, especially a leather-wearing DPS, somebody that doesn't have amazing self-sustain, it was really rough. I don't think it's going to be super fun for players if the tuning stays like it is. I think it's a type of content that helps players learn more about the game and get prepared for doing Mythic Plus and raids. They're pretty successful. There aren't a massive amount of mechanics, but there are things to dodge, there are spells to interrupt, there are enemies to stun, there is, basic mechanical interaction to deal with, and then punishment if you fail. I think that's good. Delves are a successful tutorial for other game modes like Mythic Plus and Raid. They feel like a natural extension of WoW and something that probably should have been in the game since Legion. The underlying idea is good. I want to be clear, I'm optimistic, I'm happy with this. My only real remaining concern is the tuning. Well, the tuning and the Bran AI, but Pet AI sucks in every video game and that's probably never going to change. But as for tuning, you only get one chance at a first impression. My fear, my extremely well-founded fear, is that Blizzard is going to keep Delves overtuned until the War Within is out and Delves have been kicking players' teeth out for an entire month. By that point, people will hate Delves, and then they'll nerf them, but no amount of nerfs are gonna make people like them at that point. The emotional damage will have already been done. I would prefer to be wrong. This is a no-lose scenario for me, really. Either Blizzard lowers Delve damage output and I'm happy, or they don't, and I'm unhappy but I'm right, which is arguably better than being happy. Either way, I think they're pretty fun and good solo content for tanks and for some of the tankier DPS specs, and of course for groups. So I guess in the worst case scenario, you can just make some friends for the first couple of weeks of the expansion to run Delves with them. But then in that case, why not just run dungeons together? Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.